Angel Reese just got suspended. But is she really the problem? Or is the Chicago Sky front office destroying its own franchise? Let's break it down. Asterisk, the Chicago Sky have found themselves at the bottom of the Eastern Conference this season, with only 10 wins against 31 losses. Their record reflects a winning percentage under 25%, a tough look for any professional team. Many critics have written them off as the league's weakest link. Ironically, their brightest star, Angel Reese, is also at the center of this storm. Off the court, Reese is thriving. She hosts a podcast, has inked a deal with Reebok, and continues to expand her presence in the media world. On the court, her numbers are better than last year. She's scoring more, shooting more efficiently, and showing growth as a player. The problem? Her team hasn't followed suit. Known for her candor, Reese rarely bites her tongue. Frustration boiled over in a recent interview with the Chicago Tribune. While it wasn't a flashy podcast moment or a viral clip, her words carried weight and consequences. She didn't hold back. "I'm not going through the same mess we did this year," she declared. She went on to insist the franchise make major roster improvements, emphasizing the need for not just good players, but great players. The implication was hard to miss. She doesn't believe her current teammates are enough to win. Reese also made her intentions clear about her future. She'd like to stay in Chicago, she said, but if the team fails to improve, she'd have to move in a different direction to protect her career. That blunt honesty shook the organization. The fallout was immediate. For those remarks, the team handed her a suspension. In Sunday's matchup, she'd be sidelined for the first half of the game. Fans and commentators alike are now split. Some view her punishment as justified, while others see it as silencing a player who simply spoke the truth.
Chicago Sky has been an organization that has drastically declined. They won a championship a few years ago, and you wouldn't even be able to tell because how much that organization has went down. A lot of big talent doesn't come to Chicago. The people they picked up this offseason, and it's not a diss to the players they picked up, but it wasn't enough, and I could tell it wasn't enough. And you have somebody like Angel Reese, like people are saying, like, who does she think she is? But it's the person that's leading the team in almost every category. And she's putting butts in seats.
What's striking about this whole situation is that Angel Reese's frustration doesn't just point to her teammates, it shines a light on the deeper issues within the Chicago Sky organization. It's easy to blame players when a team underperforms, but more often than not, the problems start at the top. The Sky's struggles are not just about missed shots or defensive lapses. They reflect a pattern of poor leadership, questionable roster decisions, and a lack of vision from those tasked with steering the franchise forward. We've seen this story play out before across professional sports. When ownership and management are out of touch, when they fail to listen to players or adapt to the changing landscape, the entire organization suffers. The Dallas Cowboys in the NFL are perhaps the most famous example. Despite having world-class talent on the field for decades, their ownership has often been criticized for meddling in football decisions, prioritizing branding over winning, and clinging to outdated approaches. The result? A team that consistently falls short of its potential. What Angel Reese is calling out in Chicago follows a similar script: talent wasted, leadership failing, and fans left disappointed. The irony in Chicago's case is particularly painful. This isn't a franchise that has never tasted success. The Sky are just 4 seasons removed from being crowned WNBA champions in 2021. That title run should have been the foundation for a dynasty, or at the very least, a stretch of years where Chicago remained a consistent playoff threat. In professional sports, championship teams usually stay competitive for a while. Winning creates momentum, builds confidence, and attracts both fans and players who want to be part of a winning culture. Yet instead of building on that success, the Sky collapsed. Fast forward to the present, and they are sitting at the bottom of the league, with one of the worst records in franchise history. That kind of decline doesn't happen by accident. It takes a string of missteps from the front office. Poor drafting, questionable trades, failing to surround stars with the right supporting cast. All of these decisions add up. When a championship team falls this far, this fast, the responsibility lies not with the athletes giving their all on the court, but with the executives making the decisions behind the scenes. And here's where Angel Reese's comments come into sharper focus. She is not just venting about a bad season. She is identifying structural issues that need to be addressed if the team ever wants to return to championship form. Her demand for major roster improvements may sound harsh, but it reflects the reality that you cannot compete at the highest level without elite talent around you. Great players demand great teammates, and when those teammates aren't there, frustration is inevitable. But Angel Reese's significance goes far beyond the stat sheet. She isn't just another player in the league, she is a cultural force. She fills arenas in ways few WNBA athletes can. Fans don't just come to see her rebound or score. They come because she represents something larger than basketball. Her podcast has built a loyal following. Her Reebok partnership expanded her reach into fashion and branding, and her outspoken personality has turned her into a recognizable figure both inside and outside of sports. For many, fans especially, Black women, Reese's presence is deeply meaningful. She embodies visibility in a league that is still fighting for mainstream respect. She brings representation to the forefront, showing young girls who they can be, not just as athletes but as leaders and cultural influencers. To those fans, Reese isn't just putting up numbers, she's carrying the weight of representation on her shoulders. She symbolizes resilience, confidence, and self-determination in a space where those qualities are often questioned or dismissed. That cultural impact is not something that can be measured in rebounds or points per game. It's measured in ticket sales, in merchandise, in the surge of social media engagement whenever Reese is mentioned. It's measured in the way fans show up, sometimes more for her than for the team itself. In an era where professional sports are as much about branding and visibility as they are about performance, players like Reese are invaluable. She bridges the gap between sports and culture, making the WNBA relevant to people who may not have followed it before she arrived. And this is precisely why Chicago cannot afford to lose her. Reese's words may sting, but they come from a place of truth. She is not just protecting her own career. She's pushing the organization to rise to the level of its potential. A player who sells out arenas, brings in sponsorships, and commands national attention is a gift that most franchises dream of having. For Chicago to jeopardize that by ignoring her concerns or worse, by silencing her, would be organizational malpractice. If the Sky failed to act, the cost won't only be measured in wins and losses. It will show up in empty seats, declining revenue, and a fractured fan base. It will damage the team's ability to recruit future talent, as other players see how the franchise treats its stars. It could even weaken the WNBA's broader momentum, because losing someone with Reese's cultural influence to another team or worse, to disillusionment, would be a step backward for the league as a whole. Consider how other leagues have learned to embrace, rather than stifle, their outspoken stars. In the NBA, figures like LeBron James and Stephen Curry have been allowed to grow into global icons, because organizations recognized their value extended far beyond the court. They weren't always easy to manage, but they brought too much to the table to be silenced or dismissed. The WNBA, and specifically the Chicago Sky, need to take a page from that book. Players like Angel Reese are the future. They are the ones who will carry the league forward into mainstream popularity. Of course, this doesn't mean Reese is beyond reproach. Like any young player, she has room to grow in consistency, in maturity, and in learning how to navigate the balance between honesty and diplomacy. But her willingness to speak up should not be viewed as a weakness. It should be seen as leadership. Athletes who demand excellence from their organizations are the ones who drive change. Championship cultures are not built on silence and complacency. They are built on accountability and ambition. Angel Reese has made it clear. She wants to win. She wants the Sky to rise to the level of their potential. She wants better teammates, better decisions from management, and a better future for the franchise. And if Chicago can't meet her halfway, then they risk losing her to a team that will. So the choice facing the Sky is simple but urgent. Listen to Angel Reese, or risk losing not just their star, but their connection to the next generation of fans. Her voice may be uncomfortable for the organization to hear, but it's a voice that speaks truth, not just for herself, but for the fans who believe in her, for the league that benefits from her, and for the culture she represents. Because in the end, Angel Reese isn't just fighting for herself, she's fighting for a higher standard for her team, for her league, and for the sport as a whole. And if Chicago doesn't recognize that, their fall from champions to the league's bottom feeders will only be the beginning of their troubles.
Frustrated with the organization or frustrated in general?
I don't think I'm frustrated. I probably am frustrated myself right now. I think the language is taken out of context, and I really didn't intentionally mean to put down my teammates because they've been through this with me throughout the whole year. They've busted their ass just how I busted my ass. They showed up for me through thick and thin and in the locker room when nobody could see anything. So I would apologize to my teammates, which I already have, about the article and how it was misconstrued, about what was said. And I just have to be better with my language because I know it's not the message, it's the messenger, and understanding what I say can be taken any kind of way. So I just have to really be better.
Take Emmanuel Akko, for example. The former NFL player came out in support of Angel Reese's comments, praising her for speaking her truth as a competitor. What's interesting, though, is how his stance has shifted. Back when he was on Fox Sports, Akko was one of Reese's loudest critics, quick to question her every move. Now, with his career pivoting more toward podcast spaces and conversations that resonate with Black audiences, his tune seems noticeably different. He's not the only one either. A wave of Black women have rallied behind Reese, amplifying her message and reminding the league just how much she means to the culture. What started as a controversial interview has now sparked a chorus of voices affirming her value, not just as an athlete, but as a force who commands attention inside and outside the game. One of the biggest debates sparked by this situation centers on free speech. Many people are upset, asking how Angel Reese can be penalized simply for voicing her opinion. The backlash grew loud enough that Reese herself had to address the matter directly. When asked whether her frustration was aimed at the organization or something broader, Reese admitted she was frustrated but more with herself than with anyone else. She explained that her words were taken out of context and insisted she never meant to belittle her teammates. "They've been with me through the whole year," she said, noting how hard they've worked and how much support they've shown. Behind the scenes, Reese apologized to them, both privately and publicly, and acknowledged that she needs to be more careful with her language. "It's not the message, it's the messenger," she reflected, recognizing how her words can be interpreted in ways she doesn't always intend. But the suspension isn't just about one interview. There's a larger pattern here. On September 2nd, Reese picked up a technical foul against Aaliyah Edwards of the Connecticut Sun. That was her 8th technical this season and automatic full-game suspension from the league, which means she sit out against the Indiana Fever. Add to that the half-game suspension the Sky imposed for her Tribune comments, and it becomes clear the team is enforcing discipline not just for this incident, but for a string of behavioral concerns. This is where the situation gets complicated. Teams don't suspend their star players lightly, especially not their biggest draw at the box office. Reese sells tickets, boosts viewership, and brings attention to the Sky like no one else on the roster. Yet, even with all that, management decided they'd had enough. That signals a breaking point. They're frustrated not only by her words, but also by what they see as inconsistency on the court and distractions off it. Missing free throws, botched layups, spending off-seasons away from basketball, those critiques have started to pile up alongside her attitude. At its core, this comes down to a hard truth. No matter how talented or marketable you are, you don't control the organization. If you're not the owner, you're still operating within someone else's business, and that means accountability is unavoidable. Teams keep score, not just of points and rebounds, but of behavior, maturity, and how you carry yourself. Just like in relationships or at a regular job, the grievances may not be aired publicly, but they're remembered. Eventually, patience runs out. And when it does, the response can be swift, whether that means suspension, a trade, or a clean break. At the heart of the criticism is Angel Reese's attitude, and, for many, it's wearing thin. Yes, she's accomplished a lot and built an impressive following, but the way she carries herself has rubbed people the wrong way. Ownership and management often have to remind players of a simple truth: this isn't your franchise. You don't own the team. You're here to play, and no matter how popular you are, you're not Michael Jordan or Tom Brady. The rise of social media has only complicated this dynamic. Athletes, especially younger ones, gain massive clout online, and that visibility can inflate egos. Reese is no exception. The bigger the platform, the harder it becomes to separate online fame from actual value to the organization. From the outside, what feels like charisma and influence might come across behind closed doors as ego, attitude, or even a liability. And here's the reality: nobody is untouchable. If you become too difficult or too expensive to keep around, organizations will move on. We've seen it with stars far bigger than Reese. Shaquille O'Neal was traded away in his prime. Luka Doncic has had rumors swirl around him too. If legends can be shipped out, so can anyone else. That's why some matters. Before calling out others, players have to ask, am I part of the problem? Because once a team or fan base grows tired of you, it's a slippery slope. First comes suspension. Next could be the trade block. And if that happens, Reese risks being sent to a small market team where her influence fades and her brand takes a hit. This is the part that many young stars, not just in the WNBA but across sports, often underestimate. When you're rising, when the spotlight is on you, it feels like you're untouchable. Social media fuels the illusion, millions of likes, endless streams of comments, people calling you a role model or a queen. But professional sports don't run on social media clout. They run on performance, teamwork, and the organization's bottom line. Owners and general managers will tolerate a lot if you're producing wins and ticket sales, but the minute the headaches outweigh the benefits, even the most marketable players become expendable. It's happened time and again. Look at history. Allen Iverson, one of the NBA's most electrifying stars, saw his career decline not just because of age, but because organizations grew weary of his unwillingness to adapt. Look at Antonio Brown in the NFL, talented beyond belief. But eventually, teams decided his antics weren't worth the disruption. The lesson is always the same. No matter how big your name is, no one is too valuable to lose. For Angel Reese, this moment could be a crossroads. If she learns to channel her frustration into leadership, if she uses her platform to elevate rather than alienate, she could become one of the defining faces of the WNBA for a decade. But if she doesn't, the league and the fans will move on. Because sports are ruthless in that way. So, the message is clear. Talent and popularity can take you far, but attitude can undo it all. Longevity belongs not just to those who shine brightest, but to those who understand how to sustain their light without burning bridges along the way.